The sun was setting over the calm expanse of the ocean, casting hues of gold, orange, and pink across the sky. The gentle rhythm of the waves lapping against the shore created a soothing soundtrack, blending harmoniously with the occasional calls of distant seagulls. On a secluded stretch of sandy beach, nestled between towering cliffs and swaying palm trees, a small wooden cabin stood serenely. It was here that Nathan found his sanctuary, a retreat from the ceaseless hum of the world beyond. Nathan stepped out onto the cabin's weathered porch, his bare feet brushing against the smooth planks. He held a steaming mug of herbal tea, the earthy aroma rising into the crisp evening air. He took a deep breath, letting the tranquility of the moment wash over him. As he gazed at the horizon, the colors of the sunset seemed to melt together, painting the sky in a way that felt almost otherworldly. Time felt irrelevant here, as though the universe itself had paused to soak in the beauty of the scene. He walked slowly down to the shoreline, the sand cool and soft beneath his feet. With each step, he felt the tension in his body ebb away, replaced by a sense of profound peace. He reached the water's edge and let the waves tickle his toes, their coolness refreshing and invigorating. Nathan closed his eyes and listened to the symphony of the sea, the ebb and flow of the tide, a reminder of the rhythms of life itself. Constant, unhurried, and deeply grounding. Nearby, a cluster of smooth stones caught his attention. Intrigued, he knelt and began to sift through them, running his fingers over their polished surfaces. Each stone seemed to tell its own story, shaped by years of tumbling through water and sand. Nathan picked up a particularly striking one, its deep green hue flecked with streaks of white, and turned it over in his hands. He smiled, marveling at how something so simple could hold such beauty. He decided to keep it as a token of this moment, a reminder of the serenity he felt here. As the daylight faded and the first stars began to twinkle in the sky, Nathan returned to his cabin. He lit a lantern, its warm glow casting dancing shadows on the walls. He placed the green stone on the wooden table beside his journal, a habit he developed to capture his thoughts and reflections. Sitting down, he opened the journal to a fresh page and began to write. The words flowed effortlessly, as though the tranquility of the evening had unlocked a wellspring of creativity within him. He wrote about the colors of the sunset, the sound of the waves, and the sense of connection he felt to the natural world around him. After filling several pages, Nathan set down his pen and leaned back in his chair. The act of writing had left him feeling lighter, as though he'd unburdened his soul onto the pages of his journal. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the quiet embrace of the night envelop him. Outside, the sound of the waves continued, joined now by the soft chirping of crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Nathan rose and walked to the small kitchenette, where he prepared a simple meal of fresh fruits, nuts, and a slice of homemade bread. He took his plate back to the porch and sat down to eat, savoring each bite as though it were a feast. The simplicity of the meal only added to its richness, a reminder of how often the most profound joys could be found in the simplest of things. As he ate, he watched the moon rise, its silver light illuminating the ocean and casting a shimmering path across the water. Time seemed to stretch and bend as Nathan sat there, immersed in the stillness of the night. The worries and cares that had once weighed on him felt distant and unimportant. He found himself thinking about the interconnectedness of all things, how the ocean was both vast and intimate, its tides shaped by the pull of the moon. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for this moment, for the chance to simply be, to exist without expectation or obligation. As the night deepened, Nathan decided to take a walk along the beach. The cool sand beneath his feet and the gentle breeze against his skin felt invigorating. He walked without a destination, letting his steps be guided by instinct and curiosity. The sound of the waves accompanied him, a constant and comforting presence. He noticed the bioluminescent glow of tiny organisms in the wet sand, their light sparking with each step he took. It was as if the earth itself was alive, sharing its magic with him in quiet acknowledgement. Eventually, Nathan came to a tide pool nestled among the rocks. He crouched down to peer into its depths, where small crabs scuttled and fish darted among the seaweed. The pool was a microcosm of life, teeming with activity even in the stillness of the night. He watched, fascinated, as a tiny octopus emerged from the shadows, its movements graceful and deliberate. For a moment, their eyes met, and Nathan felt a strange but undeniable connection to the creature. He smiled, feeling as though he'd been given a glimpse into a secret world. After spending what felt like an eternity watching the tide pool, Nathan decided to venture further along the shoreline. The rocks gave way to another stretch of soft sand, where the ocean's edge sparkled under the moonlight. He came across a log that had washed ashore, weathered smooth by the sea. Sitting down on it, he leaned back and gazed at the constellations above. The stars seemed to whisper their ancient stories, and Nathan allowed his imagination to wander. He pictured the countless explorers and dreamers throughout history who had gazed at these same stars, feeling the same awe and wonder. He began to hum a melody, a tune that felt as if it had always been inside him, waiting for the perfect moment to emerge. The sound blended with the natural symphony around him, creating a harmony that was both spontaneous and deeply moving. He let the melody flow freely, his voice rising and falling with the rhythm of the waves. It was a moment of pure expression, unburdened by judgment or expectation. Nathan's thoughts drifted to the people in his life, the connections that had shaped him and the memories that had brought him here. He felt a wave of gratitude for the journey he'd traveled, with all its twists and turns. This sense of reflection deepened his connection to the moment, grounding him in a way that felt timeless and eternal. Hours seemed to pass, though he couldn't be sure. Eventually, the chill of the night reminded him to return to the cabin. The walk back felt different, as though the beach itself had shifted slightly during his journey. He paused now and then, bending down to collect unique shells and bits of sea glass, each one a tiny treasure to carry home. When he reached the cabin, Nathan set the shells and glass beside the green stone on the table. He made himself another cup of tea, the warmth spreading through his body as he cradled the mug in his hands. He sat in a chair by the window, gazing out at the moonlit ocean. The waves had quieted slightly, their rhythm softer but no less hypnotic. He sipped his tea slowly, savoring the moment as though it were a rare and precious gift. Before heading to bed, Nathan decided to meditate. He sat cross-legged on a woven rug, his hands resting gently on his knees. He focused on his breath, inhaling deeply and exhaling slowly. The practice brought him even closer to the stillness of the night, his thoughts dissolving into the present moment. He felt the boundaries between himself and the world around him blur, as though he were a part of the ocean, the sky, and the stars themselves. When he finally climbed into bed, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The day had been simple yet profoundly rich, a reminder of the beauty that could be found in slowing down and embracing the present. As he lay there, the sound of the waves became a lullaby, carrying him gently into the realm of dreams. Nathan drifted off with a smile, his heart full and his spirit at peace, ready to wake to another day in his seaside sanctuary. The morning sun bathed the cabin in a warm, golden light as Nathan slowly awoke. The sounds of the ocean waves greeted him like an old friend, steady and calming. He stretched, feeling the contentment of another day unfolding in this sanctuary. The scent of salt water mixed with the earthy aroma of the surrounding which drifted through the open windows. He sat up in bed, savoring the peaceful rhythm of the world around him. After a leisurely breakfast of fresh fruit, yogurt, and honey, Nathan decided to explore deeper into the forest that bordered the beach. He packed a small bag with water, a notebook, and a light snack, then set out along a narrow, winding trail. The path was shaded by towering trees, whose leaves formed a dense canopy overhead. Sunlight filtered through the gaps, creating patterns of light and shadow that danced on the forest floor. The forest was alive with subtle sounds, the rustle of leaves, the distant chirping of birds, and the occasional rustling of small animals moving through the underbrush. Nathan walked slowly, letting himself become attuned to the environment. He noticed a vibrant green moss covering the rocks and the way tiny mushrooms clustered at the base of ancient tree trunks. Every detail seemed to hold a quiet magic, a reminder of nature's intricate beauty. As he ventured further, the sound of trickling water reached his ears. Curious, Nathan followed the sound until he came upon a crystal-clear stream winding its way through the forest. The water sparkled in the sunlight, its surface broken by small ripples as it flowed over smooth stones. Nathan knelt by the stream and dipped his hands into the cool water, letting it flow over his fingers. He took a moment to drink, the water refreshing and invigorating. Beside the stream, he found a flat rock that seemed like the perfect spot to sit and reflect. He pulled out his notebook and began to sketch the scene before him. The way the sunlight glinted off the water, the delicate ferns that framed the stream, and the playful dance of dragonflies above the surface. His pencil moved across the page with ease, capturing not just the physical details, but the essence of the tranquility he felt. Hours seemed to slip away as Nathan immersed himself in the act of creating. When he finally looked up, he realized the sun had shifted, casting a different light across the forest. He packed up his things and continued along the trail, feeling a renewed sense of wonder. The path eventually led him to a small clearing where wildflowers bloomed in a riot of colors. Bees and butterflies flitted among the blossoms, their movements adding to the vibrancy of the scene. Nathan sat among the flowers, their sweet scent filling the air. He closed his eyes and leaned back, letting the warmth of the sun envelop him. Memories of his childhood came to mind. Time spent playing in fields, chasing butterflies, and lying in the grass to watch the clouds drift by. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought him here, to this moment of simple joy. As the afternoon wore on, Nathan made his way back to the cabin. The return journey felt different, as though the forest itself had shifted in response to his presence. He noticed new details he had overlooked before. A bird's nest tucked into the crook of a tree, the faint scent of pine needles in the air, and the way the sunlight created a golden glow on the forest floor. Each step felt purposeful, a reminder of the interconnectedness of all things. Back at the cabin, Nathan set down his bag and took a moment to reflect on the day. The sketches in his notebook were a tangible reminder of the beauty he had witnessed, and he felt a sense of accomplishment in having captured those moments. He decided to prepare a special dinner, using fresh ingredients he had gathered from the small garden behind the cabin. The act of cooking felt meditative, each step deliberate and mindful. As evening fell, Nathan carried his meal to the porch and sat down to eat. The sky was painted with hues of orange and purple, the setting sun casting a warm glow over the ocean. He savored each bite, the flavors heightened by the gratitude he felt for this peaceful life. After dinner, he lit a small fire in the stone pit near the beach. The flames danced and crackled, their warmth contrasting with the cool evening breeze. Nathan sat by the fire, gazing out at the ocean. The stars began to appear, one by one, until the sky was a tapestry of light. He leaned back against a log, feeling the sand beneath him and the gentle rhythm of the waves. The fire's glow illuminated the beach, creating a cozy circle of light in the vast expanse of the night. Nathan began to hum a melody, his voice blending with the natural symphony around him. As the hours passed, Nathan's thoughts turned inward. He reflected on the choices that had led him here, the lessons he had learned along the way, and the dreams he still held. The firelight seemed to draw out memories and emotions, weaving them into a tapestry of understanding. He felt a profound sense of connection to the world around him, as though he were a part of something greater. Eventually, the fire burned down to embers, and Nathan made his way back to the cabin. He paused on the porch to take one last look at the ocean, the moon casting a silvery path across the water. The waves whispered their timeless song, a lullaby that seemed to speak directly to his soul. Nathan smiled, his heart full, and stepped inside to rest, knowing that tomorrow would bring new adventures and moments of beauty to cherish. The next day dawned bright and clear, the promise of another perfect day hanging in the air. Nathan decided to spend the morning kayaking, taking his small boat out onto the calm waters. The ocean stretched endlessly before him, its surface shimmering like liquid glass. With each stroke of the paddle, he felt a sense of freedom, the gentle rhythm of the motion syncing with his breath. He paddled along the coastline, marveling at the way the cliffs rose majestically from the water. Seabirds soared overhead, their calls echoing against the rocky walls. Nathan spotted a colony of seals basking on a sunlit rock, their sleek bodies glistening as they lounged in the warmth. He paused to watch them, their playful interactions bringing a smile to his face. Further out, Nathan encountered a pod of dolphins. They moved gracefully through the water, their sleek forms cutting through the waves with effortless precision. One of them leapt high into the air, its body catching the sunlight before splashing back into the sea. Nathan laughed, the sheer joy of the moment filling him with a sense of wonder. He felt as though he were part of their world, a guest in their vast, underwater realm. When he finally returned to shore, Nathan felt invigorated, his spirit lifted by the morning's adventures. He spent the afternoon working on a project he had started weeks ago, a wooden carving inspired by the patterns he had observed in the natural world. The act of shaping what felt like a dialogue with nature, a way of honoring the beauty he had experienced. As the carving took shape, Nathan felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that he was creating something meaningful. That evening, a light rain began to fall, the droplets creating a soothing rhythm as they struck the roof of the cabin. Nathan sat by the window, a cup of tea in his hands, and watched the rain dance on the surface of the ocean. The air smelled fresh and clean, the scent of rain mingling with the salt of the sea. He felt a sense of renewal, as though the rain were washing away the remnants of the past, leaving only the present moment. As night fell, Nathan lit a lantern, and opened his journal. The words flowed freely, capturing the experiences of the day and the emotions they had stirred. He wrote about the dolphins, the seals, and the rain, each memory vivid and alive on the page. Writing felt like a way of preserving the magic of the moment, a way of ensuring that these experiences would never be forgotten. When he finally went to bed, Nathan felt a profound sense of peace. The rain continued to fall softly, its rhythm lulling him to sleep. He dreamed of the ocean, the forest, and the stars, his mind weaving together the threads of his journey into a tapestry of beauty and wonder. As he slept, the world around him continued its timeless rhythm, a reminder that life was a journey to be savored one moment at a time. In the heart of a lush valley, surrounded by rolling hills covered in emerald green forest, there stood a quiet village named Eldermere. The village was known for its serenity, where time seemed to flow a little slower, and the air carried the scent of wildflowers and freshly turned earth. A narrow river meandered through the valley, its waters clear and cool, reflecting the golden sunlight during the day and the silvery glow of the moon at night. A young woman named Lila lived on the outskirts of Eldermere, in a small stone cottage that overlooked the river. Her home was modest, with ivy climbing its walls and a garden bursting with vibrant blooms. Lila had inherited the cottage from her grandmother, who had taught her the art of growing and nurturing life. The garden was her sanctuary, filled with rows of lavender, chamomile, and sunflowers that seemed to nod in agreement with the gentle breeze. Every morning, Lila would wake with the sun, her days beginning with a ritual of tending to her plants. The rhythmic act of watering, pruning, and harvesting grounded her, connecting her to the earth in a way that felt ancient and profound. She loved the sensation of soil between her fingers and the way the plants seemed to respond to her care, growing stronger and more vibrant under her touch. One particular morning, as the first rays of sunlight stretched across the valley, Lila sat on the wooden bench in her garden, a steaming cup of herbal tea cradled in her hands. The world around her was alive with the soft hum of bees and the cheerful songs of birds. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, and felt a sense of peace settle over her. The tea, made from her own lavender and mint, carried a warmth that seemed to flow through her entire being. As she sipped her tea, Lila's thoughts drifted to the stories her grandmother used to tell her. Tales of the ancient oak tree that stood at the edge of the forest, said to be as old as the valley itself. The villagers believed the tree held wisdom, its roots deep in the earth and its branches reaching for the heavens. Many came to sit beneath its sprawling canopy, seeking guidance or simply a moment of quiet reflection. Feeling a pull she couldn't quite explain, Lila decided that today was the day she would visit the oak tree. It had been years since her last visit, and the memory of its grandeur called to her. She packed a small basket with a loaf of fresh bread, a jar of honey, and a notebook, then set off along the winding path that led to the forest. The walk through the forest was magical, with sunlight filtering through the canopy, creating dappled patterns on the ground. The air was cool and filled with the earthy scent of moss and pine. Lila's footsteps were soft, her presence barely disturbing the natural harmony of the woods. She paused occasionally to marvel at the beauty around her. A cluster of wild mushrooms, the intricate web of a spider glistening with dew, and the vibrant colors of wildflowers peeking through the undergrowth. When Lila finally reached the ancient oak, she felt a wave of awe wash over her. The tree was immense, its trunk wide enough to require several people to encircle it with their arms. Its bark was weathered and textured, marked with lines and patterns that seemed to tell a story of resilience and time. The branches stretched outward and upward, a protective canopy that seemed to embrace the world beneath it. Sunlight streamed through the leaves, casting golden hues on the soft grass that surrounded the base of the tree. Lila spread out a blanket beneath the oak and sat down, leaning back against its sturdy trunk. She placed her basket beside her and pulled out the notebook, its pages blank and waiting. For a moment, she simply sat, listening to the sounds of the forest, the rustling leaves, the distant calls of birds, and the gentle whisper of the wind. The tree seemed alive in a way that was both calming and profound, its presence grounding her in the here and now. As she began to write, the words flowed effortlessly, inspired by the beauty of her surroundings and the memories of her grandmother's stories. She wrote about the interconnectedness of life, the cycles of growth and renewal that echoed in the garden she tended and the forest that surrounded her. She reflected on her own journey, the challenges she had faced, and the strength she had found in embracing simplicity and gratitude. Time seemed to stand still as Lila wrote, her pen moving across the pages with a quiet determination. When she finally paused, she realized the sun had shifted, its light now casting long shadows across the ground. She set down her notebook and reached for the basket, savoring the bread and honey she had brought. Each bite was a reminder of the abundance that surrounded her, a celebration of the simple joys that made life meaningful. After her meal, Lila lay back on the blanket, her gaze fixed on the canopy of leaves above. She traced the patterns of light and shadow with her eyes, feeling a sense of wonder at the intricate beauty of the world. The steady rhythm of her breathing matched the rustling of the leaves, creating a harmony that soothed her soul. She felt as though the oak tree itself was watching over her, a silent guardian offering its wisdom through its enduring presence. As the afternoon stretched on, Lila's mind wandered to the people of Eldermere. She thought about the lives they led, their stories intertwined with the valley's history. She imagined the generations who had come to this very spot, seeking solace or inspiration under the ancient oak. The thought made her feel connected to something greater, a thread in the tapestry of time that bound her to the land and its people. Lila's reflections were interrupted by the gentle sound of footsteps approaching. She turned to see an elderly man, his face weathered but kind, carrying a small satchel. He nodded in greeting and asked if he could join her under the tree. Lila welcomed him with a smile, and the two shared stories of their lives. The man spoke of his travels and the wisdom he had gained, while Lila shared her dreams and the lessons her grandmother had taught her. Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by moments of comfortable silence as they both took in the beauty of their surroundings. The man's presence felt like an extension of the oak tree, calm, steady, and full of wisdom. When he eventually rose to leave, he handed Lila a small, carved wooden token shaped like a leaf. "A gift for your journey," he said with a twinkle in his eye before disappearing down the forest path. As the evening sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Lila packed her things and prepared to leave. She stood beneath the oak tree for a moment longer, placing her hand on its rough bark as a silent thank you. The tree seemed to hum with quiet energy, a reminder of the lessons it had shared through its enduring presence. The journey back to her cottage was filled with a sense of renewal. The forest seemed to glow in the soft light of the setting sun, and Lila's heart felt lighter than it had in years. She carried with her the wisdom of the oak tree, the stories of the old man, and the quiet magic of the day. When she finally reached her garden, the stars were beginning to appear, twinkling like distant beacons in the night sky. That night, as Lila sat by the window of her cottage, the carved token resting on the windowsill, she felt a profound sense of peace. The words she had written beneath the oak tree seemed to hold a new clarity, a reminder of the beauty and resilience that existed within and around her. She knew she would return to the tree, to the forest, and to the quiet moments that connected her to something greater than herself. And so, as the gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers through the open window, Lila closed her eyes and drifted to sleep, her dreams filled with the whispers of the ancient oak and the promise of another day in her beloved valley. Lila returned to her cottage that evening feeling lighter, as if the day under the ancient oak had unlocked something within her. The carved wooden token the old man had given her rested in her palm, its intricate leaf design catching the soft light of her lantern. She placed it carefully on her windowsill and sat by the open window, staring out at the moonlit garden. The air carried a cool breeze, rustling the leaves and filling her home with the sweet scent of lavender. That night, she fell into a deep, dreamless sleep, her heart filled with peace. The next morning, Lila awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. She decided to explore the wisdom of the valley further, not just through its natural beauty, but also through the stories and lives of the people who called Eldermere home. She wanted to weave her journey into the fabric of the village's history, discovering what connected them all to this magical place. Her first visit was to the potter's workshop on the far side of the village. Old Marin, the potter, was a quiet but kind woman whose hands seemed to shape not just clay, but the stories of the valley itself. Lila found her hunched over her wheel, her fingers deftly coaxing a shape out of wet clay. The earthy smell of the workshop mixed with the faint scent of burning wood from the kiln. "Good morning, Marin," Lila greeted, stepping into the warm, cozy space. Marin looked up, her weathered face breaking into a smile. "Ah, Lila, come in, come in. What brings you here so early?" Lila explained her visit to the oak tree and her desire to understand the deeper threads that tied the village and its people to the valley. Marin nodded knowingly and gestured for Lila to sit. "You felt it, haven't you? That pull, like the land itself is speaking to you. It's always been there, child. You just need to listen." As Marin worked, she shared tales passed down through generations. She spoke of the river that never ran dry, even in the harshest summers, and the hidden springs that fed it. She told Lila about the forest secrets, ancient carvings on stones, barely visible now, left by the valley's first settlers. Lila listened intently, her notebook open on her lap as she scribbled down every detail. Before she left, Marin handed her a small clay cup, its surface adorned with an intricate pattern of leaves. "A token of your journey," Marin said. "Remember, everything here has a story to tell, even the simplest things." Over the next several days, Lila visited others in the village. She spent an afternoon with Elias, the beekeeper, who showed her the hives nestled in a sunny clearing. He spoke of the bees' tireless work and their role in keeping the valley's ecosystem thriving. "They teach us resilience," he said as they watched the bees buzz among the wildflowers, "and how to work in harmony with the world around us." She also met Astrid the weaver, who dyed her yarns using pigments made from plants in the valley. Astrid's loom was a marvel, its rhythmic clatter filling the air as she worked. "We weave not just threads but stories," Astrid explained, Every piece I make carries the colors of this land, its spirit. Each visit deepened Lila's understanding of Eldermere and its connection to the valley. She filled her notebook with sketches, notes, and reflections, the pages becoming a tapestry of her journey. Yet, she felt there was still more to discover, an unspoken truth waiting for her to uncover. One crisp morning, as autumn began to paint the valley in shades of gold and crimson, Lila decided to visit the ruins at the northern edge of the forest. The villagers spoke of it as a place of mystery, where remnants of a long-forgotten settlement lay hidden among the trees. She packed a satchel with food, water, and her notebook and set out on the winding path. The forest grew denser as she ventured north, the trees taller and their branches intertwining to form a natural cathedral. The air was cooler here, filled with the faint scent of moss and decay. Lila's footsteps were muffled by the thick carpet of fallen leaves, and the only sounds were the occasional chirp of a bird and the rustle of small creatures in the underbrush. After hours of walking, she reached the ruins. They were more extensive than she had imagined. Crumbling stone walls covered in ivy, the remnants of a central square, and the faint outline of what might have once been a well. Lila felt a strange energy in the air, as if the land itself remembered the lives that had once thrived here. She wandered among the ruins, her fingers brushing against the weathered stones. In the center of the square, she found an old stone bench, its surface etched with symbols she didn't recognize. She sat down, feeling the weight of history all around her. Closing her eyes, she let her mind wander, imagining the lives that had unfolded in this place. She saw children playing, elders sharing stories, and a community bound together by the rhythms of the land. When she opened her eyes, she noticed something glinting in the sunlight. Half buried in the dirt near the bench was a small, tarnished object. Lila dug it out carefully, revealing an intricately crafted pendant shaped like a tree, its roots and branches forming a circle. She held it in her hands, marveling at its craftsmanship and wondering about the person who had created it. The pendant felt warm against her skin, as if it carried a fragment of the past within it. Lila slipped it into her satchel, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She spent the rest of the day exploring the ruins, sketching the symbols and noting their locations. She even found fragments of pottery and tools, each telling its own silent story. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the forest floor, she made her way back to the village. That evening, as Lila sat by her window, she placed the pendant next to the wooden token and clay cup on her windowsill. Each item was a piece of the puzzle, a connection to the valley's history and its enduring spirit. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey she was on, knowing that she was becoming a part of the valley's story. But Lila's journey did not stop there. The next morning, she decided to retrace the path of the river that flowed through the valley, curious about its origins. She spent days following its gentle currents, discovering hidden pools and waterfalls. Along the way, she met a traveling herbalist named Finn, who shared his knowledge of the valley's plants and their healing properties. Together, they foraged for rare herbs, Finn explaining their uses with a passion that reminded Lila of her grandmother. "This valley is a sanctuary," Finn told her one evening as they camped by the river. "It has a way of healing not just the body, but the soul." As the days turned into weeks, Lila's connection to the valley deepened. She discovered a hidden glade where fireflies danced like living stars, a grove of ancient yew trees whose twisted trunks seemed to tell stories of centuries past, and a hilltop that offered a breathtaking view of the entire valley, bathed in the golden light of sunset. Each discovery added to her understanding of the valley's magic. She realized that it wasn't just the physical beauty of the land that made it special, but the way it brought people together, weaving their lives into a shared story. Lila felt a calling to preserve this connection, to ensure that the wisdom of the valley was not forgotten. When she finally returned to her cottage, her notebook was filled to the brim, each page a testament to her journey. She began to compile her writings into a book, blending her reflections with the stories she had gathered from the villagers. It was a labor of love, a way to honor the land and its people. Lila's book became a treasure for the village, passed from hand to hand, inspiring others to see the valley with fresh eyes. Her journey had not only deepened her own connection to the land, but had also ignited a sense of wonder and appreciation in those around her. The valley's story continued to unfold, carried forward by the people who called it home, their lives intertwined with its timeless magic. Nestled in a valley untouched by time, where the mountains stood like silent guardians and rivers carved their paths with quiet determination, there lay the Whispering Forest. This was no ordinary woodland. The forest was said to hold an ancient magic, a sanctuary for those who sought solace and wisdom. Legend spoke of its whispers, a soft, ethereal melody that could calm the most restless heart and guide the lost back to themselves. At the edge of this mystical expanse stood Elias. His life had been a relentless tide of responsibilities, deadlines, and expectations. The constant hum of city life had dulled his senses, leaving him yearning for silence. Though he couldn't quite articulate what had drawn him to the forest, he felt an unshakable pull, as if something within its depths was calling his name. The late afternoon sun bathed the world in hues of amber and gold as Elias took his first step into the forest. The air immediately changed. It was cooler, fresher, carrying the faint scent of pine needles, damp earth, and something sweet, perhaps wild honeysuckle. The world outside seemed to fade, its noise replaced by a profound stillness. Yet it wasn't silent. A soft hum, like a distant chorus, filled the air. At first, Elias thought it was the wind moving through the trees, but as he walked further, he realized it was something more. The whispers seemed alive, weaving through the branches and dancing on the breeze. They were faint, almost imperceptible, but they carried a rhythm that resonated deep within him. The path beneath his feet was soft, lined with moss and scattered petals. Sunlight filtered through the canopy above, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow. As Elias moved deeper into the forest, the whispers grew clearer, though he couldn't make out any words. They weren't intrusive but soothing, like a gentle nudge encouraging him to let go of his worries and simply be present. After some time, the trees gave way to a meadow of wildflowers. The sight was breathtaking. Poppies, marigolds, and delicate bluebells swayed in unison with the breeze, their colors so vivid they seemed to glow. Butterflies flitted among the blooms, their wings catching the sunlight like tiny prisms. Elias paused, captivated by the beauty before him. He knelt to touch one of the flowers, its petals soft and cool against his fingertips. For the first time in what felt like years, he allowed himself to feel awe, to marvel at the simple wonders of the world. In the distance, he noticed a faint glimmer. Drawn by curiosity, he followed it, weaving through the trees until he reached a brook. The water was crystal clear, its surface reflecting the sky above like a mirror. Smooth stones lay beneath the rippling current, and small silver fish darted between them. The brook's gentle burbling harmonized with the whispers, creating a melody that seemed to echo in Elias's chest. He crouched by the brook and cupped his hands to drink. The water was cool and refreshing, and as it touched his lips, he felt an inexplicable warmth spread through him. It wasn't just physical. It was as if the water carried a quiet reassurance, a reminder that he was exactly where he needed to be. Sitting by the brook, Elias let the moment stretch. The tension in his shoulders began to ease, replaced by a sense of lightness he hadn't felt in years. The whispers seemed to shift, growing stronger yet still gentle. Though he couldn't understand their language, their meaning was clear. Be still. Let go. You are enough. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of lavender and rose, Elias rose to his feet and continued along the path. The forest seemed to change with the fading light. The greens deepened, and a soft glow began to emanate from within the trees. Tiny orbs of light appeared, floating through the air like living stars. They moved gracefully, illuminating the path ahead and filling the space with a quiet magic. The path led him to a grand oak tree standing alone in a small grove. Its massive trunk was gnarled and strong, its roots twisting deep into the earth. The branches stretched skyward, as if reaching for the heavens. The tree radiated an aura of wisdom, its bark etched with lines that seemed to tell stories of centuries past. Elias approached the tree, his heart filled with a mix of awe and reverence. He placed his hand on the rough bark, and a wave of warmth spread through him, as though the tree recognized his presence. Closing his eyes, Elias felt a connection unlike anything he had ever experienced. Images began to flood his mind. A golden field swaying in the wind, a roaring ocean under a canopy of stars, the quiet stillness of a snow-covered mountain. Each vision carried a message. Life is a cycle. There is a time to grow, a time to rest, and a time to simply be. The whispers grew softer, their melody blending seamlessly with the rustling leaves and the distant call of an owl. Elias leaned against the tree, feeling its strength and steadiness. The burdens he had carried for so long felt lighter now, as though the forest had absorbed them, leaving him with a sense of clarity and peace. Night fell, and the stars began to appear one by one, their light filtering through the branches above. The orbs of light that had guided him earlier now floated higher, joining the stars in a celestial dance. The forest was alive with quiet magic, a place where time seemed to stand still. Elias sat beneath the great oak tree, his back against its sturdy trunk. The cool night air wrapped around him like a gentle embrace, and for the first time in years, he felt truly at peace. He didn't know what lay ahead, but for now, that didn't matter. Here, in the heart of the whispering forest, he had found something he hadn't even realized he was searching for, a moment of stillness, a connection to something greater than himself, and the quiet assurance that he was exactly where he needed to be. The journey was far from over, but as Elias gazed up at the stars, his heart felt light, and his mind was clear. He closed his eyes, letting the whispers of the forest guide him into a deep, restful sleep, filled with dreams of light, hope, and renewal. As dawn broke, Elias awoke beneath the ancient oak tree. The whispers of the forest were still present, but softer now, like a distant melody carried by the morning breeze. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of dew and blooming wildflowers. He stretched, feeling an unfamiliar sense of lightness in his body, as though the forest had lifted a weight he hadn't realized he was carrying. The morning light filtered through the canopy, casting a golden glow on the forest floor. Elias rose to his feet, his eyes drawn to a faint trail that seemed to appear overnight. It was subtle, almost hidden, marked by patches of glimmering moss and faintly glowing stones. The whispers seemed to urge him forward, their tone shifting to one of quiet anticipation. He knew the forest was guiding him deeper, towards something he couldn't yet comprehend. The trail led him through a grove of birch trees, their pale trunks shimmering like silver in the morning light. The air here felt different, thicker, almost sacred. As he walked, Elias noticed intricate carvings on the trees. Each one depicted scenes of life: animals grazing, rivers flowing, stars shining in the night sky. He ran his fingers over the carvings, feeling their stories etched into the wood. Though he couldn't decipher their full meaning, he felt a profound connection to them, as if they were reminders of the delicate balance of the world. Further along the path, Elias came to a small clearing where a crystalline pool lay nestled among the rocks. The water was impossibly clear, and at its center stood a single lily, its petals glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. Drawn to the pool, Elias knelt by its edge. As he gazed into the water, he saw his reflection ripple and change. Instead of his own face, he saw visions. A child laughing as they played in the rain, an elder sitting by a fire telling stories, a traveler climbing a mountain under a vast, starry sky. Each image seemed to hold a lesson, a fragment of wisdom about life's fleeting beauty and enduring cycles. The whispers grew louder, their melody harmonizing with the gentle ripple of the water. Elias closed his eyes, letting the sounds wash over him. He felt a deep sense of peace, as if the forest was showing him that every moment, no matter how small, held its own kind of magic. When he opened his eyes, the lily at the center of the pool had opened fully, its glow brighter than before. Elias reached out to touch it, and as his fingers brushed its petals, a warm energy coursed through him. It wasn't overwhelming but comforting, like the embrace of an old friend. Continuing his journey, Elias found himself climbing a gentle slope. The trees here were taller, their branches intertwining to form a natural archway. The path grew narrower, bordered by ferns and flowers that seemed to hum with life. The air was filled with the sound of birdsong and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures. Elias felt as though he were being welcomed into the very heart of the forest. At the top of the slope, the path opened into a vast plateau. Here, the forest gave way to a breathtaking view of the valley below. Rolling hills stretched out in every direction, their lush greenery bathed in sunlight. In the distance, a river wound its way through the landscape, its surface sparkling like liquid silver. Elias stood in awe, taking in the sheer beauty of the scene. It was as if the forest had brought him here to remind him of the world's vastness and his place within it. In the center of the plateau stood a circle of stones, each one covered in moss and etched with symbols similar to those he'd seen on the birch trees. The whispers grew stronger as Elias approached the stones, their melody now unmistakably clear. Standing within the circle, he felt a surge of energy, as though the forest itself was speaking directly to him. The symbols on the stones began to glow faintly, and Elias instinctively placed his hand on the nearest one. The moment his hand touched the stone, a flood of memories and emotions washed over him. He saw flashes of his own life, moments of joy, sorrow, triumph, and failure. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, he felt a sense of acceptance. The forest seemed to be showing him that every experience, every emotion, was part of the tapestry of his life. It wasn't about erasing the past or escaping the future. It was about embracing the present and finding peace within it. As the visions faded, Elias felt a profound sense of clarity. The whispers quieted, their melody fading into the background, but their message lingered. You are whole. You are enough. Carry this peace with you. Elias sat within the circle of stones for what felt like hours, letting the serenity of the forest seep into his very being. When he finally rose, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The path that had brought him to the plateau seemed to beckon him back, its glowing stones lighting the way. As he retraced the steps, Elias noticed how different the forest felt. It was no longer just a place of mystery and magic. It had become a part of him, a sanctuary he could carry within his heart. The whispers, though quieter now, seemed to echo in his mind, a gentle reminder of the lessons he had learned. When he finally emerged from the forest, the world outside felt brighter, more vibrant. The mountains, the rivers, the sky. Everything seemed infused with the same magic he had experienced within the whispering forest. Elias took a deep breath, feeling the cool evening air fill his lungs. He knew his journey wasn't over, but he also knew he was no longer the same person who had entered the forest. The whispering forest had given him a gift, not answers, but the ability to find them within himself. And as he walked away, the whispers lingered, a melody that would stay with him always, guiding him through the chapters of his life yet to come. In a quiet corner of the world, hidden between rolling hills and ancient mountains, lay a valley known only in whispers, the Tranquil Valley. Its name was passed down in folklore, a place untouched by time, where the air hummed with a soothing energy and the land seemed to breathe with life. It was said that those who entered the valley left with a profound sense of peace, their burdens lifted as if by unseen hands. Mara stood at the edge of the valley, her heart heavy with the weight of unanswered questions and unspoken fears. Life had been a relentless storm, expectations, failures, and a nagging sense of disconnection from the world around her. She hadn't planned to come here. It was as if her feet had carried her on their own, drawn by the promise of solace. The sun hung low in the sky, casting the hills in a warm, golden glow. A gentle breeze carried the faint scent of wildflowers and fresh earth, and for the first time in months, Mara felt her shoulders begin to relax. The path before her was narrow, bordered by tall grasses that swayed lazily in the wind. With a deep breath, she stepped forward. The moment she entered the valley, the air seemed to shift. It was cooler, lighter, as though the valley itself had welcomed her. The world beyond the hills felt distant, its noise and chaos replaced by a profound stillness. Yet it wasn't silent. A faint hum filled the air, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It wasn't music, nor was it the wind. It was something deeper, a resonance that seemed to echo within her chest. As she walked, the path led her through a grove of trees. Their trunks were tall and sturdy, their leaves of vibrant green that seemed almost otherworldly. Shafts of sunlight pierced through the canopy, creating patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. The hum grew more distinct here, almost melodic, and Mara found herself pausing to listen. It was as if the trees themselves were singing, their voices low and harmonious. weaving a song that spoke of life, growth, and quiet strength. The forest opened into a clearing where a small stream wound its way through the grass. The water was crystal clear, its surface reflecting the sky above like a mirror. Mara knelt by the stream, cupping her hands to drink. The water was cool and refreshing, and as it touched her lips, she felt a warmth spread through her, not unlike the comfort of a familiar embrace. Sitting by the stream, she let the minutes stretch, her thoughts slowing to match the gentle rhythm of the flowing water. The worries that had plagued her for so long seemed to fade, replaced by a quiet sense of presence. In the distance, a faint glimmer caught her eye. Rising to her feet, Mara followed it, weaving through the trees until she came upon a meadow bathed in golden light. Wildflowers bloomed in every color imaginable, their petals swaying gently in the breeze. Butterflies flitted among the blossoms, their wings shimmering like tiny rainbows. At the center of the meadow stood a single tree, its branches spreading wide and low as if inviting her to come closer. The tree was unlike any she had ever seen. Its bark was smooth and silver, its leaves a deep, iridescent blue. Mara approached it slowly, her breath catching in her throat. The hum that had accompanied her since she entered the valley seemed to emanate from this tree, its vibrations resonating through the ground beneath her feet. She reached out a hand, her fingers brushing against the bark. The moment she made contact, a wave of warmth and light surged through her, filling her with a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in years. Images began to flood her mind. Not memories, but visions. A quiet lake reflecting a sky full of stars. A mountain peak bathed in the first light of dawn. A field of golden wheat swaying in the wind. Each image carried a message, a reminder of life's simple, profound beauty. Tears welled in Mara's eyes as she realized the valley wasn't just a place. It was a mirror, reflecting back the parts of herself she had forgotten. The whispers grew louder, though they were still gentle, their meaning clear even without words. You are whole. You are enough. Let go of what no longer serves you. As she lingered beneath the tree, Mara noticed small details she hadn't seen before. Tiny flowers bloomed at its base, their petals glowing faintly in the twilight. A soft breeze rustled the leaves, and she could almost hear them whispering secrets of the ages. Time seemed to stretch and blur, the boundaries between herself and the valley dissolving. It was as if she had become a part of the landscape, her breath in sync with the gentle rhythm of the wind and the hum of the earth. As the sun began to set, casting the meadow in hues of orange and pink, Mara sat beneath the tree, her back resting against its sturdy trunk. The whispers of the valley seemed to wrap around her like a warm blanket, their melody soothing and steady. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to simply be. No expectations, no fears, just a quiet piece of the present moment. Night fell, and the sky above came alive with stars, their light filtering through the branches of the tree. Mara gazed upward, her heart full of gratitude and wonder. The constellations seemed brighter here, their patterns weaving stories she could almost understand. She lay back on the soft grass, the hum of the valley lulling her into a serene state. It felt as though the stars themselves were watching over her, their light a gentle reminder of the vastness and beauty of the universe. Mara drifted into a dreamless sleep, cradled by the valley's quiet magic. The trees' whispers continued, their melody carrying her into the deepest rest she had ever known. When she awoke, the first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of lavender and gold. The valley seemed to shimmer in the morning light, its beauty even more profound than before. She rose slowly, feeling a deep sense of renewal. The burdens she had carried for so long were no longer heavy. They had been replaced by a quiet strength and a sense of clarity she hadn't thought possible. She knew the valley had more to show her, more secrets to uncover. With a heart full of gratitude and curiosity, Mara took a deep breath and continued down the path, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. As the first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon, Mara awoke beneath the silver-barked tree. The valley's hum was softer now, like the gentle breathing of a world at peace. She stretched, feeling a strange yet comforting energy coursing through her veins, as though the land itself had infused her with its quiet power during the night. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the faint aroma of dew-kissed flowers and rich, fertile earth. Rising to her feet, Mara noticed a path she hadn't seen the day before. It wound its way through the meadow and into a dense forest beyond. The path seemed to beckon her, its edges lined with glowing moss that pulsed faintly with each step she took. She felt no fear, only an overwhelming sense of curiosity and a deep trust in the valley's guidance. As she entered the forest, the air grew even cooler, the canopy above thick with leaves that shimmered faintly, as if touched by starlight. The whispers of the valley grew stronger, weaving together in a harmony that felt ancient and wise. They weren't words exactly, but impressions, emotions and ideas that resonated in her mind. All is connected, the whispers seemed to say. Life flows through all things. The forest was alive in a way Mara had never experienced before. Birds with iridescent feathers darted between the branches, their songs blending seamlessly with the whispers. Small, luminous creatures, neither entirely animal nor insect, flitted around her, their glow casting soft light on the forest floor. The trees themselves seemed to breathe, their leaves rustling in a rhythm that matched the hum of the valley. Deeper into the forest, Mara came upon a glade where a shallow pool of water shimmered like liquid silver. The surface was so still it seemed like glass, reflecting the sky and surrounding trees with perfect clarity. She knelt beside it, her reflection staring back at her with an intensity that made her pause. It wasn't just her face she saw in the water. It was as though the pool reflected her essence, her joys, her fears, her hopes, and the burdens she had carried for so long. The whispers grew louder as she gazed into the pool, their message clear. Release. A single tear rolled down her cheek, falling into the water and sending ripples across its surface. As the ripples spread, so did a sense of relief, as though the simple act of letting go had unburdened her soul. The pool glowed brighter, and for a moment, Mara felt as though she were weightless, her spirit lifted by the valley's gentle embrace. Leaving the glade, she felt lighter, her steps quicker and more assured. The path led her to a hillside where the trees parted, revealing a breathtaking view of the valley. Rolling hills stretched as far as the eye could see, their slopes covered in wildflowers and ancient trees. A river wound its way through the landscape, its waters sparkling in the sunlight. In the distance, she could see a mountain range, its peaks shrouded in mist that glowed faintly with an otherworldly light. Drawn by an unexplainable urge, Mara made her way toward the mountains. The journey was long, but the valley seemed to guide her, its whispers providing encouragement and direction. She passed through fields of golden wheat that swayed in time with the breeze, their rustling like a gentle applause. She crossed wooden bridges over babbling brooks, their waters singing in harmony with the valley's hum. Every step felt purposeful, as though she were being led to something profound. As she approached the base of the mountains, the landscape changed. The air grew cooler, and the ground beneath her feet became rocky and uneven. The whispers grew softer, almost reverent, as though the valley itself was holding its breath. She found herself standing before a cavern entrance, its mouth framed by vines and glowing crystals embedded in the rock. The whispers urged her forward, and without hesitation, she stepped inside. The cavern was unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls shimmered with veins of crystal that pulsed with a soft, golden light. The air was warm and filled with the faint scent of minerals and earth. As she ventured deeper, the whispers returned, their tone more urgent yet still soothing. The path led her to a large chamber where a pool of water sat at its center, glowing with an inner light that seemed to radiate peace. Mara approached the pool, her reflection once again staring back at her. But this time it was different. She saw not just herself, but a version of her that was whole, free of doubt and fear. The whispers swirled around her, their message clear. You are enough. You have always been enough. Tears streamed down her face as she knelt beside the pool. The water seemed to call to her, and without hesitation, she reached out to touch it. The moment her fingers broke the surface, a wave of warmth and light enveloped her. Visions flooded her mind. Memories of joy, moments of love and connection, and a profound sense of belonging. She saw herself not as separate from the world, but as an integral part of it, connected to every tree, every stream, every star in the sky. When the light faded, Mara found herself lying on the grass outside the cavern. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. She felt different, as though a great weight had been lifted from her soul. The valley seemed to hum in approval, its whispers soft and content. Mara stood, her heart full of gratitude and wonder. The journey had changed her in ways she couldn't fully articulate, but she knew one thing for certain. She was whole, she was enough, and she was exactly where she needed to be. As she made her way back through the valley, the stars began to appear, their light guiding her home. The whispers of the valley stayed with her, a gentle reminder of the peace and strength she had found within herself. And as she left the valley behind, she knew its magic would remain with her always, a quiet hum in her heart, guiding her through the storms of life and reminding her of the beauty that existed in every moment.